Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. You will hear from everyday, smart, sophisticated, hip people like you and me. Not everybody has to be an Ironwoman to impress the world. Together, we will learn from the sports and business leaders how you can become a more successful person as an entrepreneur or a leader. It's one step at a time, one day at a time. Take your steps now. Take your big steps now. Join me on this journey to success. This podcast is being sponsored by Get Loopy. On episode 41, you can hear the story of Isabel, the co-founder and CEO. Get Loopy, get a 20% discount off your first order. GetLoopy.com. Take it from the Ironwoman. I say we only have special guests, and today is really something special. Gabe is with me. Gabe and I met probably for 2 minutes, if at all. And then he said, yeah, I'll be on your podcast. So Gabe, introduce yourself because I don't know you either. Who is Gabe who's going to join us here on the podcast? It's going to be very fun.
Yeah, so my name is Gabe Couture. Apparently I say yes very easily to things.
Thank God.
Part of my spontaneous nature, which leads me to having fun new experiences or bad ones, depends on the outcome. I am a Montrealer. I live in Toronto. I work in community building and peer-to-peer learning kind of field with a tech company called E180. I'm also a creative workshop facilitator and a personal development coach. And I think I was interested in taking part because of the Ironman component. So I've, done some podcasts before and some editing, and I like the format a lot. And so when you asked people to join it, before even really hearing the entire pitch, I was like, oh yeah, I could join. Why not? And then the thing that interested me is I'm not the most driven person, but I do like being healthy, and I admire people who do these types of activities, who push themselves to that sort of extent. I'm able to be one of those people, not because I'm internally competitive, that, driven in that way, but because I like playful competition and pushing myself, but with others. So I need that sort of interpersonal support in some ways to get really active. So I'm good at like team sports. That gets the best out of me in some ways. And I love running, and I like biking, and I like swimming, although I don't get to do it all that often, at least not laps, because, I live in Canada, and unfortunately we don't have the best pool system in Toronto, public pools where I can go train. But I do love swimming, actually. And so I said, Ironman, that would be fun. That would be something cool to do. I wonder how you would prepare for that, because it's challenging. Even my longest distance running was 18 kilometers. And to get there, I was able to do it. And I probably, had I continued to push myself, I probably could have gone up to a marathon. But it was tough, and it was draining. And if you're working a full-time job, I think your body has to take time to rest. So that's one thing I was noticing at the time. And my pace was good. So maybe that was one of the things I should have adjusted, maybe gone a bit slower.
Maybe.
So I was curious, and I said, yes, I'll do it. Tell me what I need to do.
I think this is pretty funny, right? So you're basically interviewing me how you can become an Ironman or how you can train for an Ironman. So I think you're at a good start, because you swim, you bike, you run, except you started, I run, I bike and swim. When you think about an Ironman, it's probably more practical to swim first, because you wet and then you get on the bike and then you run at the end. So I think that's one thing. I don't know who came up with the idea of swimming first, but I think that's just more of a practical matter. But I think there you're in good company. And running 18 kilometers, wow, that's a big distance, right? So that's already very good. What I think you need is the willingness, the determination of doing it. And doing it is starting it. And we all know, like, starting is the hardest. I think these are the elements. Get a nice pair of running shoes, get a good bike. And now we can talk about bikes for hours and hours. when you ever have the opportunity to go Ironman event, you will be amazed by the many bikes that you see. And also, if you a little more into bike, you might see the Canadian dollar amount or the US dollar amount of money the people are spending on the bike. So we hear of people spending as much money as they spend for a car.
Yeah.
Just to say
and that doesn't surprise me. My interest would be to complete it more than anything, right? What was the distance that you did are they always the same distance?
That's a very good question. So there's different levels. So there is the sprint distance. That can be anything. It's more like playful. What you said, like you like playful sports. It can be anything from 400-meter swimming, like maybe 20 kilometers bike, and then 5-kilometer run. And then you have the Olympic distance. The Olympic distance is what they have at the Olympics, as it says with the name. And that is, now I forgot the swim part, but it's like a 42-kilometer bike and a 10-kilometer run. And then the half Ironman is 1.2 mile swim, 56 miles on the bike, and half marathon, like 13 miles or 21 kilometers. And the full Ironman distance is 2.4 miles swim, 112 miles on the bike, and 26 miles for the running.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a very tough one.
Which one did you compete?
I did all of them. You start basically, I started out with just playful, let me do this, this is fun. And then after a while, you get a little more serious. So I have been a marathon runner, and then I got injured. And what you do when you're a little crazy about running and you cannot run, then you start swimming or biking because you're not so much on your feet. One thing leads to the other. And if you're a marathon runner, you're a little crazy and you start a half Ironman distance and then the full Ironman distance. But I also have to say, you talk about community building and facilitating and building or bringing people together. I feel like that was also for me. I was in a group of runners, and then two of my runners were half Ironman or full Ironman triathlete. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it too. So it's that magic, the energy when other people do something, you want to do it too.
How was it? I think for me, the hardest part to train right now, living in a city like Toronto, would be swimming. I mean, I don't know where you're based, or other urban participants, competitors, are they simply going to like local pools and just swimming laps? Is that how you trained?
Yeah, basically. So living in New York City is probably similar to Toronto. Like you have to go to a swimming pool. And I was lucky. There is actually 50-meter Olympic size pool, but you have to go in the morning. So that the pool is only open from 6:30 to 8:30. So you just have that window where you can swim laps. So you go on and on and on and on. And that's how you train. Or some people are more fortunate when they live close to a lake. The only thing, or to an ocean probably, it's more, if you swim in a pool, you can go alone. If you go in a lake, the ocean, you want to be safe and probably you want to swim with other people. But then when you kind of like the fear factor for me, you go into a lake, and I grew up on a lake in Switzerland, but the lake is murky, it's dark, versus when you're in a pool, it's clear. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I don't see anything anymore. So I had some panic attacks initially. So that was not so easy. Now you're laughing, right? So it's not a laughing matter when you're all of a sudden in a competition, you're like, you cannot breathe anymore. And I felt like my technique, and I'm like, I could only breathe on one side. And I was like, okay, just ease into this. So I think it's about overcoming the fear. And when you are in a competition, at least for me, I want to do well.
So were you able to do these like half Ironman or even the full one while working full time? How did that, because listen, I mean, the training, the energy that it takes not only to do the actual exercise, but to plan out a healthy eating routine and then get the rest is tough, right? Like right now for me, for example, I know that despite being a good swimmer, I have my body's not fit in that area because I'm just not swimming laps ever. Occasionally in the summer I go on canoe trips or camping and I swim in lakes, but that's sort of the extent of my training. So how fitting in all this training with having to go to work, do your things, how did you find that balance?
You make the time. So when you look at statistics, it's actually very interesting that a lot of people have high power jobs. You see a lot of CEOs, you see a lot of C-suite people. Years ago, statistics was that the average salary is $160,000. When you think about this, the average, the thing is, so I'm a solo entrepreneur. I was lucky when I was training for the full Ironman. I got up in the morning, I was swimming, and I did another workout. So I did workouts back to back. Like usually I swam in the morning, I went on the treadmill, I was running or even biking. And then I was lucky. I only started my day at 11. Basically, my whole morning was dedicated to sports. And then I worked from 11 to whatever. And you mentioned nutrition and sleep. Some people, they sleep little. I need to sleep a lot. My ideal time is to go to bed by 10, get up at 6. So that's the best time for me. And if I deviate, I get sick or I don't perform well on a regular basis in sports or in business. And then the nutrition, that was another thing. When training for the Ironman, the full Ironman, they actually say that the nutrition is the fourth element. You have swim, bike, run, eating. And my stomach was kind of like a little revolution and said like, I only like rice, quinoa, pasta, and some vegetables. I could not eat any more Indian food, Mexican food, Thai food. My stomach was very sensitive. That's a very good question. And I think everybody is a little different. Some people can tolerate more, but I could not. To me, that's a little limiting. I only have done one full Ironman. I don't know if I would do another one.
So you're eating quinoa, rice, and stuff during, you would stop and have food breaks, or how did that work?
No, not necessarily. So basically, when I got up in the morning, I would have a little applesauce and a piece of banana, and then I would swim for an hour and a half because you need a little fuel. If you go on empty stomach, you're like bonk after half an hour, at least I did, or you need to have an electrolyte drink while you're swimming. And then you need to have like some snack before you start to bike or to run. So you need to have some fuel. But then in the evening or for lunch, I needed to eat very mild food, like not too much spice. Again, no Thai food, no Indian food. That was limiting to me because I like different foods.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're burning so many calories. Mm-hmm. I mean, a banana for me takes me 12 kilometers maybe in a jog, but afterwards I'm starting to feel it for sure and would need to power up with something. And that doesn't include the swim and then the bike. That's one step of my sort of training that I haven't really perfected. When I did those 15, 16, 18K runs, it was in the afternoon or early evening after I had been eating during the day and not necessarily like paying that much attention to it, but we eat well. I eat a lot of whole grains and vegetables and proteins. So I think I was prepared on that front, but to go from 18 to 30 or to 42, you need to start feeding yourself much better. And what was it? Biking was 200 miles or what did you say?
180 kilometers, so 112 miles.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, that's quite a distance too. I mean,
and you also need to figure out how much you need to eat and when to eat. So I basically, on my watch, I had an alarm every 20 minutes. I was eating in the competition. And so you have to get used to this. Every 20 minutes, you're like, I need to drink or eat something. How cool was that, to being interviewed by Gabe? He's curious. He wants to find out how he can become an Ironman. Listen to the next episode with more details. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday, every Wednesday. Don't miss out. We have an episode for everybody. And don't forget to order Get Loopy. Get Loopy is the plant-based snack with a lot of proteins. You get 20% off of your first order. And Take It From the Ironwoman is also a book. You can order it online from Amazon as an ebook or a paperback. And coaching, running coaching or executive coaching, group coaching is being offered. Reach out. All the information is in the show notes. Let's talk. How can I help you? Take It From the Ironwoman. Thank you for listening.